Welcome to Lessons from Sports. I'm your host, Wayne Partello. And on this episode, I sit down with an old friend from San Diego who has worked for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, and now is taking on financial literacy with athletes. What a crazy ride Tyree Dillingham has been on in her career. Some amazing stories, a great conversation, and we talk about all sorts of stuff. But most importantly, as everybody wants to talk about all this money making its way into college athletics, not a lot of people are talking about helping these student athletes understand what to do and how to manage the wealth that they're now coming into. And Tyree's new program and the work that she's doing, even just this week up in Sacramento, speaking to our local government about how to protect these athletes. It's an amazing conversation. I'm really fired up for you to listen to it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Tyree. All right, this one, you know, it's so funny. I have some folks on that like one asks to come on and I get them on immediately. And then there are some folks that I got to really work around their schedules, and then magic happens overnight. And it's like, here we are. We both had a window today. Tyree Dillingham, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Gosh, we've known each other a long time, probably 10 or 11 years now, through all different iterations. And I was looking at your resume. Your journey has been absolutely wild. Can you just take us through it? I mean, from the governor of California to, now what you're doing in the NIL space. Can you just take us through the ride? Like how did it all go and how did you get here? This is amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm like, how shy are you at? Like,
we got time. Let's go.
I think, politics was my first love. It was always my first passion. I decided when I was 5 that I was going to be the president of the United States. So,
okay.
And back in the day, that was like not something that anybody could wrap their brains around. So I remember when I made this massive declaration at the ripe old age of 5, and my family like all started laughing. Yeah. And I was like, what's so funny? And they were like, a woman will never be president. I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah. I know. It's so crazy to say that kind of stuff now, it's like, it just sounds so like the 20s or something like that. So, I was like, okay, like I'll show you. So I started working politics actually when I was really young. I was like 12 and started interning. Yeah. I started interning and working on campaigns. I worked both sides of the aisle. And I just was like ready to take any job that I possibly could, and I loved it, and they loved me because I was willing to do all of the horrible jobs that nobody wanted me to do. I was like folding envelopes, and I was like, free pizza and donuts, and I get to hang out with college kids, like couldn't be cooler.
That was me in radio, same thing. I'm like, great, about concerts, this is amazing. I'll do this for free. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Again, when you find something you love, though, you will do those things because you can feel it, that it's where you're supposed to be.
Oh, totally. I loved it. It. And so, then I actually worked for Pete Wilson before I worked for Arnold. And and he and his wife Gail like really kind of like took me to their wing because again, I had no pretense about me. I was like, oh, you want me to file? Like, okay, and everybody else was like dreading being stuck in the file room. But I didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever. I just want to be a part of the action, Right. And so they rewarded me and took me places and exposed me to things. And I was just like this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed little kid. And then I was sort of like, I don't know if like politics is really for me. Like it's so, I thought it was not at the time. I was like, nobody's getting anything done. And, I feel like it's going to take somebody really big to like come in and kind of shake things up. And so then one of my majors at school, San Diego State, was political science. And
oh, wow.
When I was graduating was when the recall was happening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it was like, here I was. I actually was living in Boston at the time.
Okay. I didn't know you lived. Did we talk about that?
I don't know that we ever have. Yeah.
Oh my God. How long were you in Boston for?
I was in Boston for about a year.
Okay. Amazing. That's
Yeah,
great.
I
We'll
look
we'll
like
catch up on that later. I never knew that.
yeah.
That's why we do this. I love this. Okay, keep going. Boston.
Yeah, and so then the recall was happening, and Governor Wilson sort of put up the bat signal, that was like because it all happened so fast, and there was
Right.
so many candidates. I don't even remember now. I mean, I feel like it was like 20 or 30 candidates, right? And so Governor Wilson put up the bat signal and brought the band back together, so to speak. And I really didn't even intend on working for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was just like, I just wanted to be a part of the recall, like because I'd
Right.
studied it, like I loved politics, and I thought, oh, I'll do the recall and get out. Well, that didn't really happen. So, it was a wild ride and
Yeah.
so awesome. I learned so much, met so many people. And it was actually through that I ended up um Arnold has a nonprofit and to help inner city kids. And Sports Illustrated was doing a like a fundraiser event or something for us. And so I showed up at this Sports Illustrated party and I could not talk to anyone. Like I thought I was the most well-versed, most cocktail conversation girl there ever was. I worked in
Sure.
politics. I can talk about water policy. I can talk about you name it, like all the random things that your people usually are like,
Yeah.
what?
They're
I can talk
enamored
about
by
all
it.
those things except for sports. And so,
Wow.
uh-huh. And so now I'm in this room with all of these big name athletes, and they're like giant,
Yeah.
towering over me. And I don't know anything about what they're talking about. I'm not into pop
Wow.
culture. I
Yeah.
can't understand anything that they're saying. So they're throwing out all these terms like, dropping dimes and riding dirty. And I'm like, I don't know what any of that means.
Unbelievable.
So I was like, I just sat there, like holding my drink or whatever. And I was like taking mental note of all these things that they were saying. And I'm like, I cannot believe that I could not connect with
Yeah.
these people. Like I don't know anything about football. I don't know anything about basketball. And I don't know any of the terms that they're using.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I went home that night and I downloaded Urban Dictionary
Okay.
and then I followed them all on Twitter.
Okay.
And I would watch them tweet back and forth and use all these terms, and I would sit there and be like, "Oh, okay," like, and I'd put it in an Urban Dictionary, and sometimes I kinda knew what they were saying. Other
Yeah.
times I was, like, way off. I'm all, "Oh, wow, okay." And, so that was kind of like my entree into the sports world,
Okay.
and from there we developed a fundraising program called Touchdown Shutdown, where that was developed by Sean Phillips, who used to play for the Chargers
Okay.
many eons ago, where he would donate based on his performance on the field, and then we would get corporate sponsors to match.
It's great.
And so I ended up having all these NFL players working with us from across the country, and then from there LeBron James decided to start a Hoop Heroes program where he essentially did the same thing where he was
Okay.
donating based on his points and got all these other players involved. And so that was like my entry into the sports world. I was
That's
like, "Oh, okay."
crazy. All from a cocktail party, right? But, like, one of the things that I take out of that, though, is, so often people get dropped into places where they may feel, you know, less than or inadequate or that sort of like, imposter syndrome starts to kick in like, "Oh, maybe I'm not as well versed as I thought I was," or "I thought I could hang." Some people will take that, get into their shell and go home. You're not one of those people. I know that for sure. I don't even think you have a shell. I think it's just like, "All right, I'm gonna go study the heck out of that, and I'm gonna be ready the next time I get dropped into one of those conversations. I'm gonna be able to kinda carry not only keep up with the conversation, but maybe even lead the conversation."
Yeah, I
It
mean, it was really I learned so much,
Yeah,
like, and I think I really, like, resonated with these guys because I was just sort of, like, really wet behind the ears in that space, and they kinda got a kick out of it, like,
right.
"Where have you been under a rock?" And I'm like, "I don't know, we were doing, like, border like, goods movement policy over here, like, what do I know about
Right.
thoughts and things like that?" Like,
Well,
nothing.
yeah, and I also think too with athletes is what I found because I came from the music space into sports, so it didn't, I wasn't, like, wowed, right? I was like, you're a person, I'm a person. This is what I bring to the table. And they were like, cool. Like you weren't treating them any differently than you would anybody else in the room. And I've seen that just work so well in the world of sports where like the athletes that I've gotten to work with in my career, where we would just talk and they would want to kind of learn a little bit about the business side. And I would kind of want to pick their brain on what mattered to them on the athlete side and kind of build this trust and this rapport where it wasn't like, oh my God, you play baseball or you play football. It was just like, like one of my favorite guys, a guy I had on the podcast once is a former offensive lineman for the Dolphins when I was there. And he just loved gadgets and tech. And so he would come hang out in the control room with us after practice just to like, hey, what new toys did you get? Can I play with one of the cameras? Can I try this out? And that's how we kind of, we it had nothing to do with him playing football. It was actually more about what we did. And we've just stayed in touch for all these years. And I think that's a big thing that I try to tell people when they get into the game is like, treat everybody with respect that you would any other. And, I think that sort of carries a lot of, coming from the world of politics, everybody in the room is important. And so you've got to find a way to connect with them. And that, obviously has served you really well in your career because you continue to make incredible relationships. And now to your point, when you were in the, figuring out if you even want to stay in politics of like, could I actually make a difference from this seat? You've jumped around to continue to try to find a way to make a difference, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's really God's plan, I gotta say. I can't give
Yeah.
myself too much credit for it because it just kind of, like I just have total faith and confidence that he's gonna show me the way.
Yeah.
And, I think that from there, like it was because I treat athletes like they're normal people and I wasn't enamored by it. Like I didn't grow up
Right.
around sports. My dad died when
Sure.
I was a little girl. I went to all girls school. I didn't watch any of it. We went shopping on Sunday when football came on. I mean, that was and my whole life. So it was like that was just
Right.
never even a thing. And I went to San Diego State when the Aztecs sucked.
Okay.
So we didn't watching football was Marshall had already left. And
Yep.
so, I think it wasn't even sports wasn't a big deal when I was at San Diego State. There was more people in the parking lot at Qualcomm than there ever was inside.
Right. 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 Yeah. So there's just no. So all right. So you jump over to continue on with your journey here because I know we're not even there yet. Like we can do
We're not.
without problem.
Um,
Like
so then, speaking of Marshall,
yeah.
Marshall Faulk, I met when I was like, well, I won't say how old I was because I lied to everybody about my age. So well, let's skip that one. But I've known Marshall for
Okay.
26 years. I met him when I was 2.
Okay.
And so we met, we've been friends. He really had to work on me because I was like absolutely not like
Right.
trying to be friends with Marshall at all when I met him. And, it took us like a solid probably 5 years to really like for him to crack the nuts, so to speak. I was like having nothing to do with it. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no, I don't need any athletes in my life. Thank you very
Right.
much. We sort of bonded over helping the community, and I was
Yep.
like, "Oh, okay," like, he's actually interested in making a difference, so, maybe he's not like a typical athlete,
Sure.
and or what I thought was like a typical athlete, so we had kinda developed a friendship
Yep.
over the last 26 years, and so, kind of leaving the, like, nonprofit space, then Marshall was like, um, I have a project for us. And, we've done everything, turkey drives and
Yep.
back drives and fundraisers and, I mean, you name it, we've done it. The golf tournaments, all the things. And so I was like, "Oh boy, what's this?" And he's like, "I want to teach financial literacy to professional athletes." I'm like, "What? Like, what the heck do I know
Right.
about this?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
and, simultaneously, I had gone to Georgetown for my MBA, and I was like, I learned a lot about corporate finance
Yep.
and reading balance sheets and valuations and all those kinds of things. But, in the personal finance space, I was like, nobody really ever sits us down and teaches us, like,
They don't.
how much money is it going to take to save for retirement, and people are delulu about it. Like, truly, it's crazy. And
It is
so
crazy.
I was
It's honestly, it's why I was so excited to have this conversation because I believe it's one of the biggest failures of our education system. They will preach all of these things that are so theoretical and great if you're gonna go down the math path, But for the rest of us that maybe not, right, need to understand what it takes to buy a home or, you know, save for retirement, or what happens if you start your own company, all these things that like never came up in conversation. But yeah, continue. I'm so excited to dive into this with you.
Oh, yeah. No, never. And, like, when I remember being in college and my cousin was like, "If you start saving $100 a month, you'll be a millionaire." And I remember thinking to her, it was like, "Obviously, you don't know my lifestyle. Like, I have to go get a tan, a brand new outfit.
Right.
Like,
Of
I've
course.
gotta go to the gym. I
All
definitely
the
need
things.
In and Out to nurse my hangover," all the things, like, that
Yeah.
were very, very important. And now I look back and it's like that it's she's 100% right. I mean,
Mhm.
$100 a month when you start saving at 21, especially if you
Correct.
get a match,
Yep.
will for
Yep.
sure make you a millionaire by the time you're 65. And I was like, when I sat down with Marshall and I was like, people have to learn about this. Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy because if you show a 21-year-old, like, hey, you can save $117 a month and be a millionaire by the time you're 65, they
Right.
make different decisions than when you sit down with a 40-year-old and you're like, okay, now you have to save $3,000 a month in order to retire at 65, which is like more than most people's mortgage payment.
Correct.
And so I was like, "Wow, okay." And so, naturally, like, Marshall had ties into the NFL space, and so we started, teaching financial literacy to athletes and sort of, tailored information specifically to them because he was like, "I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to end up like like so many of my teammates did." He
Yeah.
didn't, he's been extraordinarily successful. He owns like
Right.
40 different businesses, but he watched a lot of guys not be that lucky.
It was one of the biggest things I learned when I got into the NFL was, talking to guys who had signed the big deals, and then they would talk to you about their friends, right? Because the only ones who would talk about finances were the ones who were the players who had done well, and then they would, because I was dealing with guys similar, right? Like in retirement and on the media side, because I was building out media properties around NFL and having these conversations about, one of the guys you would tell me we would get into, training camp and guys would be hitting me up for loans, while we're there because the game checks haven't come back around. And so they're living this lifestyle based on what they were getting paid during the season last year. And all of a sudden there's been 6 months of no money coming in. And, just again, nobody having those conversations. And, one of the jokes that one of the players made for me was, the gate um, in the players' parking lot, that's not to keep people out. That's to keep our cars in there so that if the repo man comes, he can't get in and take our car. And he's like, that's a real thing. And I was like, no way. And it was a real thing. I mean, it's really scary when you think about that.
Yeah.
I
And
think, oh, sorry, but I think when you guys started this, what year did you guys really start diving? Because I believe in the last 10 years, there's been a lot more attention brought to this with players.
it's probably been about 8 years now,
Yeah, okay. That
2018 or
that
so.
that lines up, right? Because I got to the NFL in 2010, so 16 years ago, and there was really no talk about it. In our time in the Dolphins, they brought in, people to lead, a lot of, like, educational programs, not just about financial literacy, but all sorts of, business courses and things that players could take in the offseason to learn. And, folks like yourselves and Marshall that have been doing this for a long time to start having the conversation. And the money grew very quickly, right? And so I think it took a while for the systems and for folks like you guys to say, oh, wow, wait a minute. Here's someone like Marshall that made a lot of money and had probably good people around him, amazing, but he's looking around at some of his friends and, teammates and going, and the money's only getting bigger, right? Like the pots are growing and it's getting scarier for folks.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. It's like that people are becoming more aware of it. And luckily, like we work with a lot of teams kind of annually and,
Yeah.
go in and either do refresher courses with the rookies. Sometimes it's both. But, it's to me, it's still not enough,
Right.
because it's like when I talk to so many players in the league who are like, we need this. Like,
Yeah.
and then I'm trying to, like, beat down the door of the team, like,
I know.
player dev. I'm like, "Hey, hi, how you doing
Yeah.
over there?" Like
I mean, we did this I was really fortunate, at the Padres that, I would get to go speak to the players and all the fresh, the rookies, in the minor leagues each year about brand and about, how you present yourself publicly, right? On your social accounts and how you behave and how it all adds up to one day, right? How much somebody's going to be willing to commit to you financially. And so, that that was sort of on the front side of like, how do we manage this brand to help you earn as much as possible and do is, not take away from what you're doing on the field. Great. And then you guys coming on the backside of like, hey, and organizations that do that stuff, I think, they should be commended. They should be recognized because I think, and you're seeing it. I mean, the players do their survey every year regarding the teams and the way they treat the players and the resources that they provide. I think that is beyond insightful to how organizations are really run. I mean, there's some pretty crazy stories in those surveys.
I do too, and I use that list, by the way. I'm like, "Oh, let me reach out to" like, they need a little help. Let me just, like,
Yeah, for
juice it
sure,
up a
for
little bit
sure.
here and see if I can't support them. But I mean, it's true. It's a crazy world we're in right now where it's like, it's not just that the money's speeding up, like life is speeding up and every decision is so scrutinized. And, it can make or break you from a monetary perspective,
For sure.
and it's crazy how many players are still making terrible financial decisions. Their business structure isn't set up properly, and they really have no idea how to plan. And in fact, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say in this year's NFL draft, I mean, there were the stories coming out, right? And I don't remember the players' names, but one player who bought, I think, Bentleys for his entire family, and then there was another player interviewed. They're like, "What do the same question? What are you gonna do with your first, with your signing bonus?" And he was like, "I don't plan on ever touching my NFL money." He was like, "I'm gonna go do endorsement deals, and that's how I'm gonna live, and I'm gonna live off of that." It's the Rob Gronkowski like theory, right? He never touched a game check and only spent his marketing money, and so he'd have to hustle to make money because we're gonna keep that over here. And you saw these two different approaches to it, and I don't know which is right or wrong. I can't speak for an individual and what they want to spend their money on, but you guys know what it looks like 10 years down the road.
I mean, that's what I always say to the players. I'm like, I'm so glad that you bought that Bentley. Are you going to retire in it?
Right.
Like, there's a few options we have here. Like,
Yeah.
now the Bentley's worth half,
You're
and
buying depreciating assets. Congratulations.
exactly. I'm like, you bought it yesterday. Now it's worth 250,000 instead of 500,000. Okay. So, like
Crazy.
most people would be freaking out if they invested in the stock market and it did that. So, I'm like, you have a few options. Like you can invest early or you can, strap on your Velcro shoes and be a greeter at Walmart when you're 70. Like, and I can help you get either way. If you want to know some ways to blow your money, I got some good ideas in that space too. But like,
That's
I'm like, well,
that's the part I love about the way and you and I have had a lot of conversations about the curriculum and the way you go about it, and it's very real. It's not, you're not going out there and selling, this, I don't know, like, "Oh, let me show you the theories of math and all this." Is like, "No, no, 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 no. That wasn't smart. Let me tell you why. Like, can you retire in your Bentley?" That's a very I'm not a very smart person. So like that for me is like, yeah, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, good question, Tyree. I don't know. I know I can't.
yeah, and I mean, that's really where, like, everything that we have done essentially has been word of mouth because
Yeah.
it is just that, like, the curriculum, everything was built to be real world examples and use their language. So, thank God for my Urban Dictionary and Twitter because, I'm able to know now, like, okay, this is the terminology that we're using. And
Right.
so when the kids all of a sudden bust out a 6, 7 in the middle of class, I know exactly what they're talking about,
Sure. Sure.
I'm like, "Cool, I got you, boo, don't worry," like, but, like, using those real world examples and
Yep.
showing them. Like, we had an athlete who's like, "Oh, yeah, I bought, an AMG," and he's like, "But I don't have a car payment on it." And in his mind, he's like, "This is a good financial decision."
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, but you're in college, and we don't know if you're gonna go pro, and you're spending $1,800 a month on insurance." And car insurance,
Oh,
I'm like, "Let me do the math for you really quickly and show you if you just took that $1,800 a month over 12 months for 4 years that you're in college, you can retire on that." And I, like, did the math and busted out, his mind was just, like, blown, like, and everybody in the classroom was, like, silent watching me do this, and they
yeah.
were like, "Wow," like
I mean, you and I have talked about I do the same thing on the brand side, right? Of like, let me show you some social media posts and ask you if that's a brand you want to invest in, right? Real life examples really matter. And when you show I used to show real life examples of individuals who were sitting in the room and we would go through everybody's socials and pull them and like, wait, whoa, whoa. And it's like, that's public, man. I didn't go search in private anything. Like that is out there for brands and teams and general managers and everybody to observe and make their own perceptions. And we all know perception is reality in the business. And that's the business I play in. Brand is perception. For you, cash is cash. Like it's black and white. There's no gray area in whether you saved money or didn't save money or invested it properly. And one of the things, so you guys went, so let's continue down. So now as we talked about the money in the NFL continue to grow. Now we've got this whole new world of piles of money in the NIL space of college athletics. And I know you guys have turned your attention to a whole new area of focus. And we just connected because you posted on LinkedIn yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, you're really doing it. Like we talked months ago about what you're setting out to do. And yesterday I don't know if you did it yesterday or you just posted it yesterday, but take us through what you're doing in the college space and the impact you've already seen taking shape.
Yeah, so when it started in the NFL, morphed into, some other professional sports, and then we would get, like, one-offs as this NIL world sort of started
Yeah.
taking shape where, 'cause being in the sports world is really small, so, like, I already had this, like, strong sports background separately. Then Marshall has his, and then we would, go to we know a lot of the same people, and then
Yep.
we were introduced to a lot of, Marshall owns a sports agency, all this kind of stuff. So we always have had college players in the office
Right.
all the time, especially over the summer, like college players, like, rookies, like all kinds of people who come in and Marshall would like coach all these guys and stuff. And so, it was only natural that then people would reach out and be like, hey, I got this NIL deal. Like, what do I do with all this money? And so again, it's just started word of mouth. And then when Marshall started coaching and Dion was really talking about financial literacy, that's when
Yeah.
he was like a big advocate. He's like, financial literacy is going to be a big piece of this. And so I took the curriculum and expanded it and wrote, it was like a couple of workshops really that we would do. And I expanded it into like a full semester long curriculum.
Amazing.
And yeah. And so then, Marshall was like, do you think that there's anybody else that would want this? And I'm like, gee, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, you're asking the wrong girl when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I was like, I don't know. And so then it just so happened that I was in Sacramento taking my mom to an eye doctor appointment, and we drove by Sac State, and she was like, "Did you know that Mike Bibby's the new coach at Sac State?" And I thought my mom was fully senile at this point. I was like, "Okay, sure, for sure." Like
Yeah.
in my I'm thinking we've got a bigger problem than your eyesight. Like we're gonna when I get home, I'm calling my brother. We're gonna have to talk about
Right.
next.
Time to talk.
And
Yeah.
and so then I Google it and I was like, she's right. So
Wow.
yeah, I was like, this is real. Like, and
Yeah.
Shaq's the general manager. Like,
Yeah, that was crazy.
yeah, I'm like, shut the front door here, right? So then I called Mike and I was like, hey, I've got some financial literacy. And he's like, what can you start? I was like, don't you want to see he's like, yeah, no, like when can
Yeah,
you
that's
start? I was
trust,
like,
right? There's trust, and he probably knows there's a need, right? Like, I
oh
mean,
yeah.
that's it, and they
He's
trust you, and
And
amazing.
a lot of these guys have actually been really instrumental in helping us sort of shape the programming because they were players, and
Yep,
they're like, "No, no, no, like, you don't understand, you have to hold their hands
yep,
completely, like, with everything."
yep,
And not that I didn't know that, but I think that there was something about him, like, giving me permission to do
yes,
that.
yep,
Um And I had no idea for the Pandora's box that I was opening, right? Like, it was like, "Okay, cool, like, now I can go up to Sacramento and see my mom and, whatever," and then it spread like wildfire, and all these schools started calling, like, "Hey, we need financial literacy."
Right.
And, it's one of the things is that in this space, people disguise marketing as financial literacy.
Okay.
So, they're like a financial advisor and they're like, "I'm gonna come in and teach your people financial
Oh, got
literacy."
it. They're trying to sell
And
them.
they're trying to sell them, right? And or, they tell the university, "Hey, we're gonna sponsor you for $250,000 for the year, and then we're gonna come in and teach your athletes financial literacy."
Oh, wow.
And yeah, yeah. So it's like a pay
I
to
mean,
play different
yeah,
kind of way.
smart strategy, right? Like, on their
100%.
part, that is you're paying a sponsorship fee to get access to an audience that is important. Yeah, smart.
Yeah, so it's really been interesting because,
Yeah,
like, first it was like I got to see all the stories from the kids and, like, how many of them actually needed someone to show up for them because they could trust maybe they couldn't trust parents,
yeah,
grandparents, maybe they didn't even have anyone who knew anything. I mean, people stealing from them, like
sure.
predatory lending deals. I mean, bad credit, parents who bought houses in their names that they didn't know about. Like, I mean, you name it. Like at this point, and I was just sitting there like, I had no idea that this is what what I was getting into, and they don't wanna talk to their coach about it because it's
Correct.
like, they don't
Well,
wanna, show
it's
up
uncomfortable.
irresponsibly.
It's
Yes.
uncomfortable, and it's there's a little bit of embarrassment. I didn't come from much, and, I got into this arena where I'm sitting across the table from billionaires, and I'm working for millionaires, and you're looking around and you're going, "How did I get here?" And, you're dealing with other things financially, and you're like, "I don't wanna talk about that. I don't wanna share that that's something I'm trying to figure out or, trying to help other people figure out."
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things to that, like, actually, I talked about it on my stories a little bit today on Insta because, number 1, it's called sudden wealth syndrome. It's like,
Okay.
eh it's very similar to people winning the lottery.
Yes.
And so, when you're growing wealth or building a business, it's gradual generally. So
Yes.
you're growing skills along with your wealth that's growing. Sudden wealth syndrome is when yesterday you had negative $7 in your account and today you have 1,000,000.
Yep.
And everybody comes out of the
Sure.
woodwork.
Yep.
And so it's actually the reason I post about it today is because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think that it's far too often people don't think about financial literacy in the mental health space, but it's actually the number one
For
cause
sure.
that people have mental health issues. And so when you're not setting your players up appropriately to have an outlet, have somebody to talk to about it, because you're right, there's a lot of shame and guilt around it. Like, not only do they not want to tell their coaches because they don't want to seem irresponsible, but there's a lot of shame and guilt, and they think that everybody else has it figured out. And like,
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
the guy that doesn't. Like,
Yep.
everybody else has it together because everybody's fronting and stunting. And so it's like, I must be the one who doesn't have it figured out.
That's right. They have the AMG. They have to have it figured out. He doesn't even have a car payment on the AMG. Of course he's got it figured out. Like,
Yes,
and
of course, he's
you're
brilliant, like,
brilliant.
this is obviously great financial strategy, and then you throw on top of that something that the leagues have dealt with for a long time, but it's even more pronounced now, is that the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed till the age of 25 or 26, and that's your
Well,
long-term planning, your strategy, like, all of these your discernment, your ability to make good long-term financial decisions isn't happening until you're in your mid-20s. And so you're throwing sudden wealth syndrome in with a bunch
yeah,
of 18 and 19-year-olds, and if you are not setting them up, I mean, think about it. When a crisis happens at a school, the first thing you do is bring in counselors. And most of these schools are tardy to the party because they're sort of like, "All right, we're just gonna get, you know, such and such bank to come in and do a budgeting
right.
workshop, and we'll
Yep.
check the box." And there's actually so much more to it. And, what's so interesting is I was sitting with a school who will remain nameless, and they had a big sponsor, who
Mhm.
was a bank. And, number one, if you did not grow up in a low income community. You don't understand perhaps that most kids from under-resourced communities have an adversarial relationship with banks to begin with. Okay.
Mhm.
So bringing them in to teach financial literacy, like already the messenger is sort of like,
Sure.
what do you
Yep.
want from me? We already know you're
Yeah.
going to screw over our people. So
That's right.
there's that piece of it. But then we sat on a call because they were like, we want you to work with us, but we have this duty to these sponsors. And so can we get on a call? And I was like, no problem. I'll totally collaborate with anybody. Right. So we get on the call. I tell them what we do. And the first question out of their mouth is like, what is different about financial literacy for athletes than for regular people? And
Wow.
I and I just sat there and I was like, I don't even know. Like,
Where
do
do
I
we
need you to
start?
answer that? Because I feel like you
Right.
just did. Like, the fact that you don't even know tells me that you shouldn't be talking to them, you know?
Correct.
And
Correct.
so I just like looked over at the NIL director and he was like, well, anyways, like,
Yeah.
and I didn't even have to explain it to anything after that. So the AD after that was
Right.
like, "We're not gonna have them come in and teach financial literacy anymore. Like, if they wanna stop sponsoring us, fine, but we're more committed to the students' programming, so we
Fantastic.
want you guys to do it." Yes.
Yeah.
And and I thought it was really indicative about the mindset of where a
Yeah.
lot of people are at when it comes to this
It
anyways.
and by the way, when we talk about, like, the negative, players in the space, sometimes it's just ignorance. It isn't even actually predatory, right? Like, there's just, like people just sometimes don't even know. I mean, one of my favorite things are some of my friends who are just huge sports fans, and in the last 10 years or, since living here in San Diego and, like, my friends here in town, they just have a completely different perspective on the business, on the athletes, on all of it because they get it raw and unfiltered from me, and I'm telling them things that they didn't even realize, you know, "Oh, yeah, so and so's, got a baby on the way. So and so's got this." Like, there's things, like, there's a lot going on in that world that, like, fans wouldn't even know, and when you get into the financial side, the instant perception is, well, of course, they have great people. I mean, come on, they're smart enough to know. They're smart. Well, yes, they are, but they may not. No one if no one took the time and care to actually show them the right way, and the one thing I say all the time is, when you've made it to that level of success at such a young age, you have physically been able to overachieve around your I mean, you're a first round draft pick in the NFL. You must have been an incredible athlete in junior high, and you were probably killer in high school, and you probably dominated right? You're if you're physically invincible, right? The rest of you start to believe you're invincible and that this is never gonna stop. I mean, you joked about your in and out hangovers. It instantly flashed me back to my early 20s and the stupid things that we were doing and like invincible. And we weren't professional athletes. We weren't making millions of dollars. We didn't have the whole world lined up to be our friend, right? Like not realizing that everybody's trying to take something from you, right? Like, but you're looking around and it's just a completely different world that these folks that they're growing up in really. And I love what you guys are doing. It's amazing. And I saw your post just real quick. So what were you guys doing at the state house?
Yeah, so because of the work that we've been doing in this space, the legislature heard about it and asked me to do a briefing for them. So I did,
Oh, that's
and they
great.
asked to make some policy recommendations. And so some of the things that I talked about with you are some of the policy recommendations that I had. I was like, well, there needs to be some sort of standardization in financial literacy for especially NIL athletes, which are disproportionately from
Yep.
underrepresented communities and minority communities, first generation college students. And so I was like, we have to set these kids up to win because we don't even know yet what the mental health challenges are going to be once they blow all their money in college and then they have to go, be working at 7-Eleven or whatever they're doing. And
Crazy.
so, I was like, we need some standardization around it, some requirements. And
Yep.
then, I mean, there are predatory lenders out there who are taking advances and taking away their NIL rights, and
Wow.
taking like 80% of their contracts. And so, and some of them come from people who actually used to be in the NBA. And so they put their name on
Wow.
these companies, and so these kids believe them, like, "Oh, hey,
Right.
they must be good."
I know that name.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, they're one of us, right? Like, that's where I wanna be, and, like, they put their name on companies, and then these students are signing away their NIL rights and signing away, 20
Yeah.
up to 8.
Pulling it forward. Pulling it
Yeah.
forward. Yep.
And so when I made the recommendations to the legislature, they're like, "We wanna do an informational hearing about this, and actually design some policy, if appropriate, to address some of these needs." And so, which I really applaud the legislature because the turnover with everything, like, we passed the NIL laws in 2019, so, that was 7 years ago. There's all new legislators in there, and when I first sat with them and I was telling them how much these students were making, they're like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And so,
That's
yeah,
crazy. They don't even know.
they don't
Again,
even know. I mean,
yeah,
it's our world, right? So we know all
of
about it, but
course.
these
Of
these
course.
guys had no idea. They were like, "Wait, what? They're making 500,000? A million? Like, there's kids making $1,000,000?" I was like, yeah."
Yeah.
And so we did an
Wow.
informational hearing. California was
Great.
very progressive and allowed some of our student athletes, including
I
ones that
saw
got.
that.
Yeah, it was a
That is
very big
awesome.
deal, like, to actually let them share their
Great.
stories about policy that affects them, which is
Yeah.
huge. And so it was a very big deal, and, I look forward to working with the legislature and, like, outlining hopefully some
Amazing.
legislation and stuff to support student athletes in California, and because of that, we've gotten calls from, New York, Florida, Texas, Louisiana. They're like, "We
Oh,
heard what you're doing in
I love
California."
it. Hey, but you know
So
what? There's full circle moments in when people's careers, we talk about this all the time, when it starts to come together, right? Like, you talked about, starting in politics, your love of politics, you went down this path because it sort of went that way and it was interesting to you, and now it's all coming full circle back that, I joke all the time, I used to not obviously, your career in politics early, my career early was a DJ, and so, like, people are way more you get a few more applause for, being in politics than you do for being a DJ, but what else then all of a sudden I get into doing what I'm doing, and I'm like, "You guys realize this like, it's all full circle for me. I'm using music and lights to sell more beer and nachos." Like, it's the same job, it's just on a much grander stage, and so it's very similar, right? Like, these
Mhm.
things we did early in our careers that are
Yes.
now actually wow, that could actually benefit me right now on how I go about, tackling this. I think it's amazing. Well, I was so fired up, and it was even cooler that your timing lined up. I'm gonna blow off a few things because we just kept going as we do. You and I, when we catch up, it is like this anyways. Um, let's just dive real quick. So the concept of the podcast is a lesson from sports, something that you've learned from being around the game, playing the game, coaching, working in it, whatever, that you've taken and applied it to your own life to be successful and or happy. What's your lesson from
Mhm.
sports?
Um, to me, this was, like, the hardest question, first of all. I'm like, "Oh my god, there's so many.
I
Which
know.
one's gonna be the best?" Right?
Yeah.
And I have to say the interesting thing about this journey is I also started, um, competitive bodybuilding, not professional competitive
Yep.
bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding in bikinis, about 2 years ago. And
Okay.
so I, for the first time in my life, also became an athlete. And
Fun.
which I never would have considered myself an athlete up until
Yeah.
this point. Now I very much do. So it's I empathize with those that I coach on a different level.
Right.
And I would say something that I learned simultaneously in both spaces that I now apply in every area of my life is that everything that I've been successful at, it really comes down to the aggregate. It's the little decisions that are made. Very rarely, yeah, sometimes people blow their finances on a big deal and they lose a bunch of money at once, but most people
Mm.
are not saving money because it's all those little micro decisions on Amazon that you're spending. And like,
You're
or
right.
what you're eating, right? When you're trying to, in my case, like I trying to shred,
Yep.
and so it's all those little decisions. Like I weigh all my food down to, the gram.
Right.
And it's like And if I tell my trainer I want to gram over, you would think I killed somebody, right? Like, it's just like, oh my God, it's the biggest deal. And I actually appreciate, whether she's exaggerating it or not, I appreciate it very much because it has made me look at every single little decision that, like, that's where the game is won,
Yep.
is in the micro moments.
Yep.
And, I jokingly was speaking at this women's event and they asked me about my money conversations every day. And they kind of tie together because I said, well, I don't know, this is probably not kosher to say, but I was like, I was gonna buy some Cadbury eggs during Easter. And I was like, you know what? I'm not paying to be fat. And, all these women, I was like, "Oh my God, that's like so un-PC," right? Like, and I was like, and I didn't know how these women were gonna
Yeah.
respond because I didn't really know the crowd. But I think that there's a lot of truth in that because it's not about the money. It's not like I couldn't afford $6 to buy Cadbury eggs. I would eat them all in one sitting. And, I'm like, so neither one of those decisions, number one, it's not supporting my financial habit, and then it's not supporting my
Right.
bodybuilding goals. And so, and everybody in your life is gonna tell you, "Oh, it's no big deal. Like, live a
Treat
little.
yourself.
Yeah, it's what you owe it to yourself. You work out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week." And it's like, I'm not gonna say there's no days off because I do take days off, but
Sure.
it is being committed to my goal all the time.
Right.
And that all these little micro decisions truly add up. And I watch it with money, with
Mhm.
their bodies, with, whatever goal, the reading. Like, if I was gonna sit down and do a month's worth of workouts, I would be working out for like 4 days straight, right? Not
Right.
possible. But because I make the decision to do it every single day,
Yep.
I don't have to, not sleep for 4 days and do 4 hours of workouts. And I mean, silly, but
Yeah.
you get the point is that I truly think it's like the aggregate of all these mini decisions that get you to the goal that people blow into the wind. And those that take
Right.
them seriously are the ones that you see out outperforming and excelling when it comes to the field and like actually being able to accomplish their dreams.
It's a great one. That's a good one. It's a new one. That's a new one. I like it. And I like that it ties both of your worlds together. I love that. All right. So I always wrap this up with a positive note. You
Okay.
know me. I try to like glasses half full most of the time. I've had to learn in business to also look at the other side of the glass to, protect the business. But what's the best part of what you do now every day? What's the best part of your day?
There's 2 best parts.
Okay, let's go.
Number 1 is that I get to help people. So,
Yep.
everything that I've ever done has been motivated by that. Like, I'm not money motivated, which
Yep.
is ironic because I teach
I
it,
know, right?
but my first love has always been helping people, making the world a better place because I was a part of it. And then the second thing is that it keeps me young. Like,
Sure.
I love learning all the new vocabulary and I love like, seeing the world. It's like when you have a baby, right? And you're like reliving, seeing a train for the first time. Like
Right.
you're reliving all these experiences for the first time. And
Yeah.
so, going back and seeing college, like all the things that, well, I probably don't remember because I was drunk, but also, I know I shouldn't admit that, but
No, no, it's very honest. I love it. Bring
and
it on.
but, like, seeing everything again through their eyes, and they just exposed me to a different world that I wouldn't be exposed to, if I didn't get them, and so it's like and they love it, like, they
Right.
love
Yeah.
learning. When I sit with 40-year-olds, they're all stressed out, like, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna retire? I haven't saved a dollar." These
Right.
guys see nothing but possibility, and so they're,
Mhm.
like, super excited about it and hungry to have the information, so it's like this
Great.
this really cool exchange where they keep
Yeah.
me young and I keep them knowledgeable.
I love it. Well, I we stay in touch through the years. You you tossed this out to me, gosh, I don't know, less than a year ago of what you were doing and that where you saw it going. When I saw the pictures of you in Sacramento in front of the legislature talking about this project and this problem and the solutions to it. I was beaming with pride. I'm very happy for you. I'm proud of you. It made me, first of all, proud of you as a friend, but as a person and as someone who's in the space and sees these incredible young people that are just that. And to your point of feeling young, and you can look back and I was never that athlete, but you can see that young, for me, young man. And I can remember being that age and being just full of dumb, dumb, just doing stupid things and like nothing that, bad, but just like, just making decisions. I joke all the time when I love to still have some of my DJ money from back in the day when I was just printing cash as a 19-year-old kid, printing cash. Was I printing NIL cash? Not that much, but I was making a lot of money. And, people would say, oh, you just save a little, just save a little. And I'm like, yeah, but like, there's a Thursday, I gotta go out, and I'm having a good old time. I had great cars, I had all the things, and I survived a lot of my mistakes, and I just love to see that there are people out there that are coming at it from a standpoint of, like, teaching it in a way in which these kids would wanna learn it and gamifying it and making it fun and making it interesting and not making it, just another thing to worry about. It is actually the most important thing they should be worried about beyond their performance is what they're doing with the benefits of that performance. So, kudos to you guys. I love it. Continue to do what you do, and I'm here to help in any way possible, and, love it. Thank you so much for, taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Always great to see you. Look
Always
forward
good
to
to see you.
collabing some more in the future.
Yeah, yeah.